Good morning, good afternoon, and good day wherever you may be joining us from. Welcome to another edition of Sales TV Live. Today, we're exploring how trust and credibility build sales professionalism. We're joined by Dr. Jeremy Noad with more than 2 decades of senior leadership experience. Jeremy is a global leader in sales transformation and pricing effectiveness. He is co-author of Selling Professionally, a guide to becoming a world-class sales executive, and a founding fellow of the Institute of Sales Professionals. Jeremy, welcome.
Thanks, Rob. Happy to be here, and I think you make it sound very impressive, more impressive than it is.
I don't know about that. You were telling me some of the things earlier. It is pretty impressive.
So yeah, I mean, professionalism is always a thing, and uh, I think going back to the book you just mentioned, we myself and Dr. Beth Rogers wrote that, and we consciously said it's selling professionally. Yeah, how to become a world-class sales executive. We spend a bit of time on trust and on ethics and the behaviors of a salesperson, as well as sort of the basic knowledges and things like that. And I think that's crucial as we sort of try and progress to a more professional state. And I think professionalism isn't necessarily a badge or a certificate that we have, though it would be nice to have a formal recognition by various institutions. But I think it's a mindset, and it's how we behave and how we think about things with our customers.
So, when we were discussing your appearance on today's show, you once said to me, trust is the currency of selling. I loved that. Please explain for the audience what you mean by that.
Yeah, I think trust is the currency of selling, because otherwise, what are we doing? What's the purpose of a salesperson? And I think if you go back, Neil Rackham used to talk about these ideas of walking product catalogs. And if you think you go back far enough into the 1920s, the salespeople were door to door and they carried the catalog. And then we sort of all became product experts, and we were the catalog. And that sort of went away when the internet arrived. Because when the internet arrived, the buyers, our potential customers, our prospects could just Google us, and they'd know exactly what we did, exactly what our competitors can do. And so, how do we sort of bring value to the customer? And I think the trust is a large way of how we demonstrate the value not only of our brands that we're working for, but also ourselves. And when we think about it as sort of saying, what have we got to sell? We can sell some bits of plastic and metal widgets. We could sell a software solution. But to get people to buy from us, they have to trust us, because every decision is based on what do they want out of it. And normally speaking, when we're talking business to business, we're trying to solve a problem or create value for that customer so that they can solve the problems of their customers and create value for their customers. So as a B2B salesperson, you're somewhere in a value chain which ends in an end product. And people have choices, and the amount of choices we have available to us now is much, much greater than ever before. And so to get on the agenda, to be considered seriously, to be able to get the answers to the questions we need to ask, we need to engender trust, and we need to be able to show that we are trustworthy and the company we work is trustworthy. And one of the biggest drivers of trust is doing what you promise. If you imagine, if we didn't do what we promised with our bosses, then there's a phrase in the UK, there used to be Job Centre Monday. If you're not trusted to deliver the work you're employed to do, whether you're a salesperson or not, then the chances are then you won't be working there for very long. But your trust goes further, because as a salesperson, we sit on this boundary. We represent the customer on one side of this boundary wall, but on the other side, we represent the organization that we work for. And so we have to balance the two parties. And by being trusted by both parties to do our job, to be professional, to achieve the results we want to get, not just for ourselves, but also for our customer, then we're engendering trust. And each time we engender trust, then we get more credibility. With credibility provides us with more opportunities.
Excellent. Thank you. So I agree with all of that. But what happens when, well, how do I hold myself accountable when everyone else is cutting corners?
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. What's the behavioural norm on so many different things have changed this time. I've got a bit of grey, or a lot of grey actually. You got a bit of grey, so we've reached that special point in life where we can say, "Oh yeah, well, in my day, blah 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 blah." Yeah, it wasn't like this, but life moves on, things changed, and what's normal changes quite rapidly now. So many different sort of signals coming in to change it. I think the simplest one, I think really is, there's a thing about integrity and trust and ethics, and it's sort of, you see the motivational process, do the right thing when no one's watching. But if you want to make sure that you are doing the right thing, there's two other tells behind that. And I think it's, if you had to tell your grandma what you've been doing, would you be okay with that? And the second one, which is probably even older, is, if we sort of, if what we did appeared on the front page of the newspaper, would we be happy or would we be concerned? And I think, as somebody who tries to sort of balance it out as a salesperson, we've got to be able to make sure we commit and follow our promises. And I think that's where we sort of cross this sort of boundary. It's not necessarily a pricing discussion. It's about this sort of, when we make a promise to a customer, we need to make sure that we can make that promise and we fulfill that promise. Now, customers obviously like us if we save them money or get, give them cheap prices and things like that. But sometimes we have to have the vision credibility to sort of say, actually, what we do is make sure we do what we said, and that de-risks what you're going to do for your customers and your business, and therefore your customers are going to be satisfied, therefore you are going to be satisfied with us, therefore you will trust us more, and therefore we're more likely to get repeat business. And it's sort of this sort of, whether you call it a sort of a string of pearls or a value chain or things like that, the trust goes all the way through. And I think we have a problem, and we have a problem with trust, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily bad actors, but I think we have, again, some sort of behavioral norms. How many times do we, I'm in a fortunate position, people think I'm in a position to buy things, and therefore I get these LinkedIn requests. If you go back a couple of years, the practice was to explain why you were connecting, offer me a little bit of value. Best you get nowadays is, I want to grow my network, or nothing. And therefore I'm less inclined to engage with you because you're offering me nothing, therefore I'm less inclined to trust you. And I think this whole piece around hygiene factors, which really came to the fore again during COVID. Could we deliver on our promise in trying circumstances? And you remember we went through significant, rapid organizational change. You imagine people had a field sales force, and the day after COVID was announced, basically we had a video sales force. And we had to think about how we sort of convey our messaging, fulfill our promises, because it's, these hygiene factors that we used to take for granted and say, oh yeah, they don't matter. It's more about the price or the extra widget or the supersize me or whatever like that came into it. But actually what we really realized during the sort of COVID periods, and they kept coming away, was, can we commit to do what we have to do? Can we deliver on time? Have we got the products we need, the services we need? Can we help maintain it? I work in a business that has a healthcare arm. So, oxygen to hospitals, to the medical services, to the fire and rescue services, very, very important. There's less about your brand and things like that, but could you get the oxygen in place? That is building trust. When they come to retender in 2023 and 2024, the fact that they trusted us to deliver on our promises, to do the basics, which was move oxygen from here to here so they could use it, helps put us in a better position to have a meaningful conversation about future products and services. And that's because they trusted us when we were in adverse situations to deliver. And as a salesperson, I need to be able to be trusted to be seen as being professional. I need to be able to see that the actions I take, the commitments I take, I follow through on them. Because we've all sort of worked in organizations where we there's somebody, we sort of on a project team or in a meeting and say, oh, I'll do this. And how do you feel when they don't do it for whatever good reason they may have? But that trust in that person's eroded, and whatever project we were working on has gone backwards or been delayed or things like that. And then you multiply it by all the customers you have. And that's why it matters. And so this idea of sort of making commitments to the customer and making sure you fulfill them is absolutely critical. And I think, we don't, when we talk about professional service, we think about lawyers, we think about accountants, and obviously the medical profession and the numerous other ones. But, in sales, we're lacking that at this moment as a clear guiding light. We want it, we like it, we see examples of it, we see pockets of excellence, but as a profession, because we haven't sort of built this together and said, okay, we know we need compliance, we know we need ethics, we know we need trust, we know we need a sales process, whatever that may be. We'd like some leads, etc. But if I get you some leads as a marketeer in the company, do I trust that you're going to go out and follow up those leads? That builds trust internally if you know that the work I do is of value to you and you go forward. And we're just multiplying that out to the customers. The work you do has to matter to the customers. Excuse me.
We have a question from the audience, and anyone else that might have a question, please put it right in the chat. We'd love to bring you into the conversation. Adam Gray asks, does the customer really see the salesperson as fighting in their corner, except when discounts are being discussed, of course?
It's a challenge, but I think for certain products and services, the relationship between the salesperson and the customer is critical, particularly when we're talking about things that are customizable or they have a specific need. Software, there's one, a lot of it is out of the box and nobody has to sort of bend their processes into it. And when you say to a software vendor that this is how we do things and this is the way we want to do things, and they go, yeah, no problem, I can go and talk to the product management team, etc., to do something, then I'm much more inclined to trade with them than if I was there was somebody who says, yeah, you just need to change your processes to fit with our software solution, which is quite a common thing. But I think when we go for customization, when we really dig into sort of large and complex deals where we have to meet the customer at where they want to be met, then the salesperson's role is critical to be that customer's advocate. And part of the buying decision that the customer will make will be based on their observation of this sort of customer advocacy. Do they trust them to actually advocate correctly, make the case? And again, for large and complex sales, you might be bringing in a team to help fulfill that customer's needs, but they've got to have confidence that their spokesperson is trusted to message correctly, to make sure that the opportunity progresses.
As a sales leader, how can I mentor or lead my team to live ethics and integrity in every interaction?
Wow, that's a good one, isn't it? I think it starts with yourself. I think observed behaviors are stronger than people sometimes think. You know, sorry, I'll just drift into something else. There's a concept called permitted delinquency, and it came out of the military. And the concept is what your NCOs allow the soldiers to do, which is contrary to the regulations, but gets the job done, is permitted delinquency. What the lieutenant does or the lieutenant does with the NCOs, how flexible they give them, how much latitude they give them, is all about permitted delinquency. And I think where we have a problem is in this observed behaviors. If we don't pull up and say this is the standard and apply it consistently across all the sales team, then you're eroding the ability to engender trust and ethical behavior. So if you have, the super salesperson delivers $3 million of deals a year, top performer the past 5 years, but doesn't do something you expect everybody else to do, then people are going to observe the behavior that you permit that delinquency, and therefore they know now there's latitude. And as soon as you know latitude, then people might be inclined to examine where the barriers actually are. And apart from having the negative effect on our customers, where I think trust and ethics and compliances, it's also a waste of our time. We are less efficient when we are too busy trying to define what the rules are, when we're too busy about micromanaging what we do. But we have behaviors to say, this is how we do things. For those who are interested, this is why. And this is the desired outcomes. And the reason we have these desired outcomes is because we want to serve our customers better. Our customer service, is structured around, doing what we say we're going to do in the correct, effective, quick manner. And so, how we act and how we permit our team to act is an indicator of the organization and also our personal value statements. Now we can't, there's lots of things around HR, sort of, people trying to hire in their own image, and we don't get the right spread of skills, knowledge, and experience if we sort of keep cloning ourselves. But we have to sort of clone our standards, and therefore wherever we got a sort of framework, and I think the Institute of Sales Professionals, which you mentioned right at the start, have this sort of framework in place to say, this is what we should be doing, this is what we should be aiming for, this is how we engender it. Because when we engender it, we demonstrate a consistent message. And if we have a consistent message in front of our team, it's our visual leadership. It's not about telling them what to do, it's about this observed behavior. And when people observe the behaviors, it provides them with non-verbal direction about how they should act and how they should be behaving. And obviously, if we reach that as sales leaders, and that translates to the organization, then we're going to be more trustworthy, more trusting. And if somebody is trusted, that kind of shows, if the coach trusts you, to go and make the big play, you're 95% there on effectively making that big play, because the trust has been given to you, and psychologically you're very invested in delivering what you want. So I think it's the behaviors come from all around us, and what we permit and what we don't permit.
Earlier, you mentioned keeping your promises. I want to dig into that a little bit more. What practices separate a sales professional from someone who just does sales?
I think the biggest difference between a sales professional and somebody who just does sales is our long-term outlook. Generally think that the long-term outlook is one of the things that we need to think about. Somebody who does sales will sell something in the short term, they will achieve in the short term, but they have to be lucky every time. They have to be able to find new people, and because they're not looking at the deal in a long term sort of constant customer relationship. Sign it and move on to the next one. Now, some people's job descriptions are like that. You sign it and move on. But somebody in your organization, after you've signed it and moved on, has to come along and deliver on it. And if you've overpromised things or misrepresented things or got focused on getting it over the line within the quarter because that was the pressure put on you, and you've taken a shortcut or you've left some ambiguity out there, then that needs to be resolved by the organization you're representing. And that could be positive for the customer, it could be negative for the customer. If it's negative for the customer's sentiment is negative not only to the brand and the products and services, but actually it's negative to you as well. So effectively you can run out of rope. And I think so a salesperson is looking at the revenue, the short-term impact. And I think a sales professional is about, I want to sell to this customer today, but importantly, I want to sell to this customer tomorrow. What I'm selling, certainly in B2B, is hopefully making that customer more successful at whatever they do. If they're more successful, they're going to grow. If they grow, they're going to provide more opportunities. If they provide more opportunities, then that's going to be useful for me and my organization. We have metrics and people talk about, recurring revenue, share of wallet, those sorts of things. It comes from the long-term view. And the long-term view for a professional is, if I make my promises and I deliver on my promises, I give them no reason to doubt me, that my interest and their interest is combined. They will assign an amount of trust to me that will build over time. And as long as we don't have any mistakes and errors, that will grow continually. If we have a mistake or error, then if we can fulfill our promise to sort that out, again, that helps build the trust bucket. And that's what a professional does. I think a professional looks longer term. He's looking to say, where can I add value for this customer? Where can we serve this customer better so they can be better at whatever they do? Because that's the happy chain that we have. If they can do what they can do, then that helps us sell what we sell. And I don't think that's sort of industry specific or even sort of products versus services versus software. I think it's genuinely in sort of B2B, we have to take the long-term view. And therefore, we have to think about what we say, fulfill our promises, to build the trust, to make sure we're still in mind the next time the opportunity comes around. We take that next opportunity and the opportunity after that. And, all businesses want to grow. That should provide us with a steady stream of income as a salesperson for as long as we are doing that particular role, which obviously is a nice benefit of just doing what you should be doing.
Absolutely. So if you were to emphasize one thing you would want the audience to take away from today's episode, what would that one thing be?
I think very simply is you think about what you say, you think about the promises you make internally, externally, with your customers and your prospects, and you fulfill them. And you tell people that you fulfilled them. So it's not just something, a professional makes sure we close the loop. So the customer asks me this, I do this, I also tell the customer I have done this. They have one less thing to worry about. They've now only got 97 things on their to-do list. They've one less meeting to worry about, one less report to write to the boss. It's do what you say you're going to do. Keep your promises. That will build trust, regardless of hiccups in the supply chain, hiccups in billing and invoicing, delays and things like that. Do what we say we're going to do. It's going to build trust. We build trust. We build relationships. We build relationships. We build customers with long-term futures. And that, I think, is being professional.
Excellent. Jeremy, this has been great. Thank you so much. How can people learn more? Where can they get in touch with you?
So I am on a couple. I'm obviously on LinkedIn, but like I alluded to, you know, random requests without a reason don't always get very far. But yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I publish occasionally. I still have X, Twitter, but I post about once every 18 months. But LinkedIn, ask me a question, and I'm more likely to reply. If you ask for a connection without a reason, then I'm less likely to reply. I'll take a random question off anybody
Excellent.
if you want to ask me something.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And to our audience,
Thank you.
if you liked what you heard today, please take a moment to follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Substack. Even better, leave a comment to let us know what you learned and what you'd like to learn more about. Your feedback helps us reach more people like you and fulfill our mission of elevating the profession of sales. This has been another edition of Sales TV Live. On behalf of everyone at Sales TV Live, to our guest Jeremy, and to our audience, thank you for being an active part in today's conversation, and we'll see you next time. Bye all.